Hey there, welcome back to K-Korner, your go-to spot for wild, unbelievable, and absolutely true tales from around the globe. I'm your host, Crown, here to take you on another journey through the twists and turns of life's most fascinating stories. So grab your favorite snack, settle in, and let's dive into today's roller coaster of emotions, drama, and unexpected turns. Remember, if you enjoy our content, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more amazing stories. Let's get started. My name is Alex and I live in a cozy suburban neighborhood. It's usually a quiet place, but things got really wild when a woman I will call Crazy Karen decided to turn our lives upside down. My roommate Sam and I were chilling in our living room, binge watching our favorite show. And that's when we heard some rustling in the backyard. Sam peeked through the window and his eyes widened. "Dude, there's a woman out there messing with our garden shed," he exclaimed. We rushed outside and saw her. A middle-aged lady with a frantic look rummaging through our shed. "Hey, what are you doing?" I asked. She spun around a bit startled.
"Oh, hi. I'm Karen. I was just looking for a place to relax and your garden seemed perfect,"
she replied with an unnerving smile. "Relax? This is a private property. You can't just come in here," Sam interjected.
Karen waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, don't be such a stick in the mud. I won't harm anything. I just need a little getaway."
We insisted she leave, but she ignored us, continuing to explore our garden as if it were a public park. The next morning, things escalated. We found Karen asleep under our oak tree, surrounded by some of our garden tools and a couple of our lawn chairs arranged like a makeshift bed. "This is insane," Sam muttered. "We need to call the police." Before we could act, Karen woke up.
"Good morning, neighbors,"
she chirped, stretching. "We're not neighbors. You can't stay here," I said, frustration building in my voice.
"But I have nowhere else to go, and your garden is so peaceful,"
she pleaded, her tone shifting to one of desperation. Feeling a bit conflicted, we offered to help her find a shelter or some assistance, but she refused. It was clear that she had chosen our garden as her new residence, and she wasn't going to leave voluntarily. By the third day, things had gone from bad to worse. We discovered that Karen had taken some of our things, a couple of blankets, a portable speaker, and even some food from our kitchen. That was the last straw. "Enough is enough," Sam said, dialing the police. As we waited for the police to arrive, Karen seemed oblivious to the trouble she was causing. She was lounging in the garden, humming to herself. When the police finally showed up, Karen tried to play the victim.
"Officers, these men are harassing me. I'm just a harmless woman enjoying nature."
But we had photos and videos of her taking our stuff and making herself at home in our garden. The evidence was undeniable. The officers listened to both sides but ultimately sided with us. They informed Karen that she was trespassing and needed to leave immediately.
"But this is unfair. I have rights,"
Karen protested, her voice rising in pitch. One of the officers sighed. "Ma'am, you can't just occupy someone's private property without their permission. That's against the law." Karen was relentless, arguing and refusing to leave, and in the end, she was handcuffed and taken away for trespassing and theft. We tightened our security, installing a new fence and surveillance cameras. Very weird experience. Merry Lake Christmas. My friends John and Sadie have a story about one of their neighbors and how he managed to stuff a 5-pound bag of coal in a Karen stocking this Christmas by using malicious compliance. This particular neighbor, Tim, and his wife Frances will go overboard on the outdoor decorations every Christmas. There will be lights, garlands, wrought iron reindeer, statues, snowflakes, candy canes, a 6-foot-tall Santa statue, a nativity set, and so on and so on. It was its own brand of charm, according to the neighbors. Unfortunately, earlier this year, Frances suffered a massive stroke and passed away. Tim was devastated, especially as Christmas came closer and closer. Frances's favorite holiday was Christmas. Tim told the neighbors around Thanksgiving that he wasn't going to decorate the house that year. It was just too painful without Frances there. Everyone was sad, but they understood. Unfortunately, Karen didn't get the memo. It's the week or so after Thanksgiving and people who haven't put up Christmas decorations are busy doing so. John and Sadie were walking their dog Domingo. Tim is out front of his house getting the mail. John and Sadie go up with Domingo to see Tim and say hello. While they are talking, a red minivan pulls into Tim's driveway. Karen steps out. Sadie and John have never seen her before, but Tim recognizes her. Good morning, Karen.
Yeah, hi. I was wondering if you're going to put up your Christmas decorations this year.
John, Sadie, and Tim look at each other uncomfortable. I'm not going to put up any decorations this year, Tim said.
And why not?
Karen asked. Well, Christmas reminds me of Francis.
Well, what about my kids? They have been looking forward to seeing the house decorated. And the fact that you're pretty much the only house that isn't decorated makes them really sad. What would Francis want?
Sadie, John, and Tim just stared in astonishment.
We've had a pandemic and we need the cheering. We have been looking forward to this every year.
Tim is looking both angry and broken-hearted. John and Sadie are ready to tell Karen to go stuff it, but Karen sets the trap for Tim's malicious compliance.
We're going to be here after church on Christmas Eve, and this house better be decorated.
And with that, Karen gets back into her minivan and drives off. Sadie looks at Tim and he's got a malicious smile on his face. She wants a decorated house? She's going to get a decorated house. The weeks pass and Tim starts getting several packages delivered. He also starts putting things up in the yard, but they are covered with bed sheets so they look like those Halloween ghosts. He also starts putting lights on the house. There is more lights than usual, but he doesn't turn them on at night. Karen and her minivan don't show up, even though John and Sadie had alerted everyone in the neighborhood about her. Christmas Eve rolls around. John and Sadie are invited to Tim's house for dinner and to watch the movie Scrooged. They are also asked to bring your own bottle, and when they arrive, the curtains are drawn. Tim greets them with a big smile. They settle down and he details his plan, asking for their help. They are laughing at the end of it and eagerly agree. As they work, Sadie notes that he's happier than they have seen him in a while. Tim says it's hopefully going to get even better. By this point, it's still just light enough that they can see what they are doing, but just dark enough that they can't see what's in the yard. They remove the bed sheets and laugh at all the decorations that have been set up. There is a nice dinner and the movie playing. Midway through the movie, Tim's alarm goes off on his cell phone. He pauses the movie, looks at John and Sadie and says, "It's showtime." Everyone bundles up and they head to the sidewalk across the street. It's now pitch black and Tim's house still isn't lit up. There is the usual cars driving through the neighborhood, with Karen's red minivan being at the end of the line. Right on time, Tim says, taking a remote out of his coat pocket. They wait until the red minivan reaches the front. Tim presses a button. According to Sadie, it was like the scene from Christmas Vacation, when the Griswold house turns on. There is red, white, and blue lights galore. The yard has eagle statues, stars and flags, banners, statues of liberty, and so on. In the windows are lights that look like exploding fireworks. Tim grins and presses another button. All of a sudden, Star-Spangled Banner begins to belt out through several speakers placed throughout the yard. As John, Sadie, and Tim are laughing as the minivan stops and parks, Karen gets out of the driver's seat and storms over to them.
What is that?
She shrieks, pointing to the house and looking about ready to blow a gasket. It's my salute to all nations, but mostly America, Tim said.
Don't you like it? It's Christmas,
Karen shouts.
I wanted you to decorate the house for Christmas.
Well, you wanted a decorated house, Karen. You didn't say what holiday.
With that, Karen flipped him off,
got back into the minivan and drove off. Tim turned off the music and lights and then headed back to Tim's house to finish Scrooged. Tim told John and Sadie as they were leaving for the night, "I think I'm going to decorate my house like this every Christmas." Francis would have gotten a kick out of it. I was pushing 40 and I'd learned a lot of lessons in more than 10 years of legal practice. But one of the most important lessons I learned was from an older lawyer that I worked for as a summer student after the second year of law school. A lawyer has 3 duties, he told me. First to himself, second to the court, and last the client. Always make sure you come first and the client comes last. The reason? Because clients will screw you, he said. They will throw you under the bus without thinking twice. I should have stayed with this lawyer, but being young and an idiot, I had to go work downtown. And I'm still downtown now, but fortunately for me, I remembered this lesson. And it came in handy many years later when a client really did try to throw me under the bus. My client was this mid-sized company that did this and that and owed things here and there. Not big enough to be listed, but it did have a pretty sizable real estate portfolio. One day, a building they owned burned to the ground. The company wanted to collect on the insurance, so they told Frank, a veteran salaryman, to deal with it. Frank was close to 60 and thought he knew what he was doing. He didn't need me to help him with the insurance claim. He told me he had everything under control. Besides, lawyers are expensive. Some guys really get off on not paying legal fees, and Frank was one of those guys who gloated over every penny that he managed not to pay to the lawyers. I dealt with Frank a lot, and he was always nickel and diming me. The insurer is going to screw you. I told Frank it was only by luck that I even knew about the fire and a loss because Frank had not asked for my help. He just let it slip one day, and since then, I'd kept on top of him, trying to get him to smarten up. I'd had to fight to get him to send me the proof of loss form to make sure he hadn't messed that up. Frank screwed up a lot, and I wondered sometimes how he had a job. But the proof of loss was okay, at least, so that was one less thing to worry about.
You don't know that,
he said that. I could tell he just wanted to get me off the phone. I'm paid to know when insurers are trying to screw my clients, I said that. And the insurer is going to screw you. They have been stringing you along for ages with requests and questions and paperwork, but they aren't going to pay you. Not unless you sue them. But Frank said he knew what he was doing, that it was all under control, and besides, he got along with the adjuster so great. The limitation period expires in 2 weeks, I said. Once that the 2 weeks pass, it will be too late to sue. The moment that limitation period expires, they will stop taking your calls. You will get a final email saying sorry, you're out of time. And that will be that. Don't leave this till the last minute. Let me sue right now, and you will have the money in no time. Frank was like, sure, fine, whatever, don't bother me, I got this, blah blah blah. And he got off the phone as soon as he could. I sent him the usual email with clear warnings and recommendations, which he ignored. I sent the email again and then again as the limitation period approached, and again a couple of days before the deadline. I am going to be at trial and you won't be able to reach me. My final email said, but you have to sue. You have other firms on your list, so pick one and sue. He didn't bother to reply, and I went off to do my trial. The trial lasted a couple of weeks and no email from Frank. Then a month passed, and another month, still no email. I figured he must have sorted things out. Maybe Frank was right after all, I said to myself. And then my phone rang. It was Frank. Remember that fire insurance we spoke about? We'd only spoken about it like a dozen times. I figured he was cool enough to gloat. So I got to the chase. So they paid out? That's great, Frank. You were right. He asked me what I was talking about. And could he see a copy of the claim? What claim? I said, the claim against the insurer. You know, that claim. Does that mean the insurer didn't pay? I said. He hung up on me, and then a few minutes later my computer dinged. And there was Frank's email talking about how we spoke, and he told me to sue, and he was worried when I hadn't sent him a copy of the claim, so he was following up to get a copy of the claim. I emailed him back. I take it that the insurer didn't pay you, just like I told you they wouldn't. And now that the limitation period is expired, they told you to jump in a lake, leaving you with a loss in the millions. Is that it? I'd made a mistake by not going over Frank's head when he wouldn't listen to me. But if I'd gone over Frank's head, I never would have received another file from him. So I didn't. But that was then. And this was now. So I CC'd Frank's boss and his boss's boss. Plus, I CC'd Bill, the client's in-house counsel. Bill acknowledged my email right away and called me later that day. Frank messed up. He said that. We know that. He's an idiot. So what do we do now? So his excuses didn't work? Nope. Bill explained that they had summoned Frank to a boardroom, but his story didn't add up, given all the warnings I'd sent him. Besides, there would have been no reason for him to keep emailing the insurer if he'd told me to sue. Once the file goes to the legal counsel, Frank's role was over. The company knew Frank was bullcrapping them. So that's it then? Bill said. We just lost a couple of $1,000,000. It's okay, I said, explaining that when I realized that Frank was going to screw up, I issued a claim against the insurer because I'd made Frank send me the proof of loss a while earlier. I had enough information that I could sue to preserve the cause of action. Not a great claim and short on details, but good enough. You sued without instructions? Bill said that. Lawyers aren't supposed to sue without instructions because if you do that, You're personally liable for whatever cost the other side incurs. It's a big deal to sue without instructions. Yep, I said. I sued without instructions. I pulled up a copy of the claim and emailed it to him as we spoke. It's a little rough, I said, but we can always amend. Thank God, Bill said. Can I leave it with you? Of course he could. The insurer was a sitting duck and I knew I'd collect from them. No problem. A few days later, I got a call from another guy who worked for the client, a guy I didn't normally deal with. They had a situation and needed my help. I usually deal with Frank. I said, what's up? What was up was that Frank got called into another meeting and they handed him a one-page letter. And then he put his little office things in a box and security walked him past his co-workers to the elevator and escorted him downstairs to the parking lot. Bye-bye, Frank. He was too old to get another job, or at least not a decent one. It was a life-changing event for Frank, but for me, he was just an anecdote. A cautionary tale that I tell young lawyers sometimes over beers. Maybe too often, because I'm getting on in years and I have my favorite stories. I wasn't trying to get revenge on Frank, not at all, and I would have felt a bit sorry for him if he hadn't been trying to throw me under the bus. But the guy who replaced him was great and never nickeled and dimed me. So it was all good. This story didn't happen in the US. I, 32 female, had dinner with my sister Laura, 40 female, last night. The place was a popular and somewhat high-end restaurant. The unspoken agreement between the two of us was that I cover the bills whenever we go out together, as I'm doing much better financially. For background information, Laura married right after college and became a stay-at-home mom. She only started working again last year after her divorce. No monthly alimony, but ex-husband takes care of all their kids' expenses. She has almost six-figure amount from their joint bank account that is now hers, and now more or less has a salary of someone newly graduated from college. So we ordered 5 dishes to share at the restaurant. The dishes came one by one and Laura and I chatted as we ate. The last one was supposed to be a steak of a certain cut of beef and specific side dishes. What was served looked nothing like what was on the menu. I called for a server to take it back and get us a right order, but my sister stopped me. Laura said the restaurant was super busy and we shouldn't add burden to the already busy and hard-working staff. She said we could just eat this dish we got by accident, and she said some places the owners make the staff pay for this type of error out of their own pocket and we should be just kind to them. When the bill came, I told my sister she needed to pay for the dish we didn't order. Laura threw a fit, telling me that I knew she didn't plan to spend this kind of money today, as I always have paid. I said I told her to return the dish, and she refused, so paying for it was now her responsibility. Laura finally scrapped together enough cash for the dish while I paid for the rest, my sister calling me a jerk for being so petty. Later, my mom also called me and said I was being unkind because I could easily afford to pay, while Laura would find it harder to make up the loss. Am I the jerk? And now some comments on the post. Someone saying, you should have told her that she'd have to pay before you decided whether to send it back or not. What you did was kind of sneaky. So yeah, you're the jerk. Another commenter adds, you're the jerk. The unspoken agreement is that you pay. Your sister provided arguments why you shouldn't send it back. But you were in control here. You should have sent the dish back if that's what you wanted to do. Now make your sister pay for a high-end restaurant that was supposed to be your treat without any warning. A third commenter goes with, not the jerk. She decided to keep the incorrect dish. She can pay for it. Wow, what a ride that was. Thanks for joining me here at K-Korner. I hope these stories left you amazed and entertained. If you've got your own tale to share, drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our daily adventures. This is Crown, signing off.